Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this event, which will be equipping you to be an effective communicator with our lawmakers, letting them know your opinion on the important bills that are coming before them in this session, and also to be extended to the national legislation that's going on right now as well. So all of this will be useful to you as you go forward as a concerned voter. The League of Women Voters of Hillsborough County is proud to provide this opportunity to make a difference in our community, our state, and our nation. My name is Deborah Kaufman, and I am president of the Hillsborough League. Before we meet our speakers and dive into this topic, I would like to provide a little bit of information about the League for some of our newer members and our guests. The League of Women Voters was founded over 100 years ago, shortly after passage of the constitutional amendment granting women in the United States the right to vote. It was then and continues to be a nonpartisan political organization committed to educating voters and advocating for important community issues. These two separate but equally important functions help us to achieve our mission of empowering voters and defending democracy. Membership is open to all persons 16 and older. Becoming a member locally automatically makes you a member of our state and national leagues. If you are interested in joining us, please indicate that in the chat tonight, and we will contact you with information. And now for tonight's topic and our guests. As champions of democracy, the League knows that empowered voters are essential to maintaining justice, creating equity and equality, and ensuring a quality of life for everyone. In a representative democracy like ours, it is vital that you and I, as citizens and voters, make our voices heard on the issues that are close to our hearts. Tonight, we will review some information that you may have learned before, but like me, may have forgotten about how bills become law in our state and some of the key activities that go behind all of that process, and also this year's schedule for it. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our president-elect and the chair of our Education Action Group, Teresa Potter. Teresa has been a financial advisor, a corporate technology trainer, and an elementary and high school media specialist, and is currently working for FLATE, an organization that works to build a pipeline of future workers for the manufacturing industry, and with PathTech, a team doing research on the impact of technical community college programs. The mother of 2 college-aged boys, she has been active in the PTA since 2006, which coincidentally was the year that Florida's public schools were best funded, ranking 23rd in the nation in state funding. My, how times have changed. After watching state education funding plummet to 47th in the nation, Teresa got more involved in public education advocacy. First, as legislative chair for the Hillsborough County PTA to help educate parents, teachers, and students across Hillsborough County on the public education bills moving through the Florida legislature. And then as the Education Action Group chair right here for the Hillsborough League of Women Voters. Teresa, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. So I am going to give a brief overview of the process for anybody who hasn't been active in Tallahassee. And then I'm going to introduce our guest speaker tonight. So first, there we go. We always want to start by just reminding everybody that the League is a nonpartisan organization. We always focus on the issues, and the issues that we focus on have been analyzed and voted on by our membership at either a national, state, or a local level. One of the things that you learn if you've been following bills for a while in Tallahassee is that Senate bills are designated SB, and they're even numbered, which helps you sometimes to remember them when you're trying to remember a lot of bills. And House bills are designated HB and are odd numbered. Tonight, we're talking completely about the Florida process for the Florida legislative session. All the bills contain a title and provide a brief description of the bill. We'll talk later about how you can find summaries and the like, the basics. After a bill has been introduced and assigned a number, it goes through the committee process. So it typically starts in one committee and then is referred to either directly to appropriations or through several other committees, depending on the bill. Once it goes through that whole process and goes to the floor, it still must have a matching bill in the other house. So if it starts off as a Senate bill, it needs to have a matching bill in the House in order to move forward to be passed. When a bill first comes up in a committee, the sponsoring legislator or committee chair, if it's a committee bill, we'll go over the bill with the committee members. When it's in committee, that's when our private citizens have a chance to speak to the legislators at that committee to voice either support or opposition. We'll hear more about that in a little bit from Trish. And a simple majority is required to pass a bill out of a committee. It doesn't require any additional support than that. Amendments can happen through the entire process. Some bills that I've been following this week have been just passed through committee without amendments, but they can be amended in the committee process, and amendments can happen the entire time through the process until it's voted on and sent to the other house. Sometimes there's a real small amendment to a bill, and sometimes they do what is called a strike all. So I'll talk a little bit about the process of filing a bill and the deadlines for bills. But somebody can file a bill early on before the deadline, and then they can do a strike all, which replaces all the language in that bill with new language. So it may look like a completely different bill than it was when it was originally filed. So they can have placeholder bill numbers set there before they know exactly what language they want to come through. So when you see a strike all, it means the entire bill has been replaced with new language. So once it goes to the other chamber, it goes through the same process. It has to have a sponsor. If it's not the identical version of the bill, then amendments will need to be made to make it identical in order for it to go on for the governor to sign it. So as it says in that last line, it has to be the exact same form in both houses in order to move forward for passage. And then the governor's action depends on a couple of things. So if it's during the session's not over yet, and a bill goes to the governor, he has 7 days from the date the bill goes to him in order to act on it. If it's at the end of session, then it's more than double that time period. He has 15 days to act. And at that point, he has several options. He could sign it and it goes into law. He can veto it, or if he doesn't act on it at all, it automatically becomes law without a signature. And if no other bills pass, you have been following the process in the Florida legislature, a lot of bills come through, a lot of bills are filed, and maybe only a couple hundred will pass. It could be that none of those bills pass except one. There's only one that's required to pass, and that's the appropriations bill. So the budget has to pass. They can't conclude the session without matching bills for appropriations in both the House and the Senate. If they don't do that, then they have to have a special session to finish. So the committee process starts a long time before the first day of session. So last week, a week ago today, January 11th, the session started for this year, but a long time before that. So beginning in August 1st was the first deadline for filing claim bills. December 3rd was the deadline for submitting requests for drafts of bills and joint resolutions. And January 7th was the deadline for approving final drafts of general bills. So as I said, they can later do a strike all. An amendment can happen in committee or on the floor. But those bills have to be in place prior to January 7th, the bill numbers. And then you'll start seeing different things happen from there. Trish will explain more about that. On February 26th, a motion to reconsider is made and considered the same day. March 1st is the last day for regularly scheduled committee meetings. And on March 11th this year is the last day of the regular session. So that's some basic information. And now I'm gonna flip back over. I want to introduce Trish Neely, who graciously agreed to be here to help us this evening. Trish is an active league member and membership chair for the Tallahassee League of Women Voters. She has held the position of Lobby Corps chair for the Florida League since 2019, and I'll let her explain what the Lobby Corps is. A native of Ohio, she's lived in Florida since 1985 and is retired from a 30+ year career in compliance, risk management, and executive leadership. And her role in the Lobby Corps means she has a lot of experience with Tallahassee and lobbying on league issues. So thank you so much, Trish, for being here, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, I think I've got everything situated here. Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me to come and speak. I'm always delighted to share my insights. I've had quite a bit of experience both with the League and in my work career, actually testifying before our Florida legislature, and I also testified before the IRS multiple times in my career, and that's always an interesting activity. I might share that one day with different people. That was pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. Go to the next slide, please. So let's talk about advocacy, what it is, what it looks like, and importantly, how to do it successfully. Next slide. So a couple of definitions, because I'm always asked this, and I think it's very important for you to know what the difference is between being an advocate and being a lobbyist. As just a general basic premise, when we as leaguers advocate for the League, we're demonstrating public support for, as well as recommending from our 12 Florida League spotlight issues. And I just copied this from the state website. These are our issues right now. And of course, because we're a grassroots organization, you all were involved in coming up with these particular issues because they're determined by our membership. Lobbying is a specific advocacy technique, and it is to influence public officials, either at the local, state, or the national levels. I'm an advocate, and I engage in lobbying activities, but I'm not a paid lobbyist, so I don't have to register with the state. And for any of you, when you go out and advocate or even lobby on behalf of the League of Women Voters, you also don't have to register, but you'll be doing both. You'll maybe just be an advocate, and there will be times when you will be out there and you'll be a lobbyist actually lobbying. 3 important points to make before we move to the next slide. First, we keep our advocacy broad. So you see our 12 spotlight issues. We keep our lobbying focus narrow. As you know from this year, we have 6 priorities that were taken directly from our spotlight issues. We have voting rights, and that's always going to be #1 for the League, because voter suppression, making sure people have the right to vote, is one of the most important things that we do. And this year, we also have redistricting, because that's on the agenda for Florida. And we are always looking for fair districts. We need to make sure that whatever maps they come up with, that it doesn't gerrymander in favor of any particular party. Then we have reproductive rights, making sure that women make their own decisions, and certainly trying to keep Mississippi and Texas laws away from Florida. Education, we're all about a well-funded public education with curricula based on truth, diversity, tolerance, and science. And then, of course, we have our environment and natural resources and healthcare. The League for several years has been trying to work on the Florida legislature to expand Medicare, but so far that's been a losing battle, but we'll keep up with it. Okay, the second important point. The League operates on 3 different levels to make it easier to engage with our government. The National League is responsible for advocacy at the congressional level. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't get involved, because periodically the US League sends us calls to action and requests our assistance with our particular congressional delegation. State leagues and local leagues advocate and lobby state, county, and municipal officials. And that's really what I'm going to be focusing on as part of my presentation. Third point to make. The spotlight issues that we espouse, either at state league or local league level and the National League, they are not going to be identical, but they are going to be consistent and complement one another. My strongest piece of advice to you all is to familiarize yourselves with the issues before you try to go out and advocate. And it's a lot, so travel with some kind of a binder of facts. That's what I have, just to be able to refer to. Okay, next slide. So what does advocacy look like? Well, in this slide, you see some of our 2021, 2022 advocacy in action. Deborah, I found a picture of you advocating on one of your network channels. You also see a photo of Representative Anna Eskamani in the cute little pink suit there, advocating at last week's Reproductive Rights press conference. Oftentimes, when we think of advocacy, we envision meeting directly with legislators or officials in their offices. We also think about testifying in committee, because you hear a lot about that, or speaking to county delegations. And these are excellent opportunities, but I want you to just keep in mind that advocacy comes in many shapes and sizes. And that's, for the past couple of years, that's really been a good thing, because a direct meeting has not been that easy to come by, and testifying or speaking in public is just not everybody's cup of tea. Some people just find it a real challenge to even think about speaking in public. I understand that. And with our raging pandemic that, every time I think it's getting better, another wave happens. And we've had to think outside of the box to have our voice heard. During the Delta surge, we in Tallahassee, in our league, we held a 20-car Get Out the Vote rally with, we went through downtown Tallahassee, and we had other voting rights organizations along with us. It was a lot of fun, and certainly we got the message out there. And we've resorted to emails, text messages, and plenty of Zoom calls. And so I would offer to you to not think in terms of advocacy within a specific time period, but to think about it more as a year-round activity. Okay, go to the next slide, please. So how do you advocate successfully? Well, I said you really need to have a working knowledge of the positions. So, and what I mean by that is you don't have to recite scripture and verse. General knowledge of the issues is really sufficient. And I would pick several issues that you're most passionate about and do a deep dive. I wouldn't try to focus on them all. And you don't have to be the brightest light bulb in the room. I'll share my story with you. I think most of you, well, no, maybe most of you don't know, But I do most of the testifying on behalf of the league as lobby corps chair. It's something I've done for over 30 years. It's something I'm very comfortable with. And all you have to do is give me some talking points and I can pretty much speak on anything. But when I first started in my role as lobby corps chair, I'd sit in those hearings, waiting my turn to speak. And there would be all these experts speaking on the topic that I was about to speak on. And they knew so much more than I did. And I would sit there and fret. In fact, a couple of times my palms actually got sweaty. And I was worried that what I was about to say was insignificant by comparison. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't need to worry. That wasn't true. The advantage that I had was I provided a user-friendly version of the facts. I now refer to it as the league version, the keep it simple, stupid version. And guess whose comments are consistently picked up by the news media? Well, they're mine, because they're easy for public consumption. They're easy to understand. Some of those experts, they have a lot of knowledge, but it's a lot of technical knowledge and it goes right over the heads. Now, why is this important? Why is it important for us to be quoted in the newspaper? And it's not because I enjoy having, my name out there in public. It's important because advocacy is all about reach and influence. What we want is for somebody to say, oh, I heard the league on NPR this morning, or I heard the league on WFSU, or I read this article in AP and the league said this and this. Because we're grassroots, remember, not everybody has an opportunity to be in Tallahassee, and we want our members and others to understand our position so that they can help support it. It's how we help push legislation, even when we're not the we're not the best friend of some of the legislators. Let me, I guess, put it that way. The state program, if you don't know where they are, and the study and action guide, so you can get up to speed on some of these things, are on the state website. I did just a little cut and paste from the state website so you could see where it is. If you go under league management, there's a little section there that says state program, study and action, and state bylaws. I would download this and keep it handy. I am at an age right now where I remember enough to be dangerous. So I print key pages and I make it the foundation of my league folder so that I always have some points right at my fingertips. You really need to have a plan that is approved by your president and your board, and it must be approved. Remember that, because this is part of speaking with one voice. Be strategic when outlining your plan. What shape will your advocacy take, and what outcome are you looking for? You don't want to just make arrangements to go and talk to somebody without knowing, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to say to them? And then what are you going to do with the information that you may receive from that person? And remember that as soon as you put on a league shirt, a league button, you wear a league name tag, carry a league sign, you are representing the League of Women Voters, and you really need to represent us well. Okay, next slide. So let's look again at our 2021-2022 advocacy and action slide. I want to give you a little bit more context to some of these methods. So press conferences and TV or radio interviews are excellent ways to reach and advocate to a broad audience. Be very careful though. I'll go back to know what you plan to say. When you're preparing your comments, use my favorite KISS method, keep it simple. And also the newspaper article approach. I don't know if any of you have written articles for the newspaper, but the most important point you want to make needs to be the point that you lead with. You don't want to work up to this grand climax just to be cut off or have your audience start thinking about lunch. I outline and script everything. It keeps me on message. It keeps me focused. And I'm terrible at extemporaneous speaking. So having it scripted allows me to practice in advance, meet time limits or constraints, which I often have. When I'm testifying before a committee, sometimes you'll have as much time as you need to express yourself within bounds, 5 minutes. But usually when I'm testifying, you've got 1 minute or you've got 3 minutes. So I've got a 1 minute and I've got a 3 minute script. And the same for radio spots, because they've only got so much time in between other things that they're doing. And I'll tell you, it doesn't bother me in the least to admit that I often just read from my script. I do practice looking up and down, so it doesn't just look like I'm reading. It maybe looks like I'm confirming the high points, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. So if you want to get involved and you're just really nervous about speaking, you're afraid you're going to lose your place, just script it out and read it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Many people don't like Zoom, and I didn't like it to begin with, but I have to tell you, it's been an absolute blessing. In 20 and 21, it was the preferred method of contact for many of our officials. At that time, we couldn't even contact our supervisor of elections for a meeting. We had to do it by Zoom. This year, of course, things are different. In fact, I consider the Tallahassee Capitol building as a petri dish because there's really no COVID protocols down there. The Republicans are following their party line of, we live in the free state of Florida. We don't have to wear a mask. We don't have to be vaccinated, and we don't have to socially distance. Most officials are part of organizations that have internet sites and email addresses. Use them, take advantage of them, because it is really an easy way to invite officials to an event. It's an easy way to request a meeting and also for sharing educational materials. I'm often asked, which is better? Should we send an email? Should we try a telephone call, text message, what? And what I would tell you is, it really depends on the official and their staff. I do everything. I mean, whatever I can get to work, I'm going to do. If I can't get through with a phone call, I'm going to try their email. If I can't get through that way, I'm going to try a text. So whatever works. I will say, don't use snail mail. It just goes into the dustbin. So don't waste your stamp. Remember that our officials are always running for office, even if they just won election, and they love to hear from their constituents. So make sure that you mention you are a constituent, if in fact you are. And they love photo ops. So take their picture, make sure you get a picture of them. It's free publicity for them. When I spoke at our Leon County delegation in October, I think there were about 4 or 5 members of the board that went with me just to stand in solidarity, having our buttons on and the whole thing. And I asked, before everything got started, I asked a member of the audience if he would take our picture. And it was so funny because Representative Allison Tant and oh gosh, who else was it? Senator Osley could not get out of their seats fast enough and behind us so that they could be in that photo op. So I'm telling you, they love to have their pictures taken. So the best place to get an audience is when the official is on home turf. catch them at their district office. And with our legislators, many have district offices, and they have a very specific staff there that mans while they're in Tallahassee. And then they also have Tallahassee staff. Our lobby days, which, oh my gosh, I think it's next week. I think it is next week. So lobby days, I love. I love it for training. I love it for exchanging information, education of our members. It's great for that. Sitting in committee, we can all be there. You know, we can have our buttons on. We can do the League of Women Voters, rah, whatever it is we want to do. But it is not the best way to meet with your legislators. It's not the best time. They're going to be very busy. If you manage to get an audience, it might be for 30 seconds or a minute. You could end up meeting with their staff, which is never a bad thing, because I assure you their staff are well-versed. They know for the most part as much as, and sometimes maybe more than their senator or representative does about a particular bill. Town halls. Most delegations, most legislators with county delegations will hold some type of a town hall. This is typically done before session gets started, before they start the committee meetings, because they want to hear from their constituents. Find out when that delegation meeting is being held and get on the agenda. Make sure that you've got people there that can speak on the league's various priorities, and importantly, find out how much time you have, because again, you don't want to be, building up to some kind of a climax only to have them say, well, we're sorry, but we need to move on to the next speaker. And also, when I do our delegation meetings, I always send every member of the delegation a copy of what I plan to say, just in case somebody doesn't make it or they're sick or something or other. So take advantage of any opportune moment to introduce yourself and say something positive to your legislator or your official. If nothing else, thank them for their service to the district and acknowledge that they have a very difficult job. I mean, making decisions for the communities that they serve, it's a hard thing to do. And again, whichever party, they're going to be dictated to by their party, but they also want to be there for their constituents. And sometimes that's a real tough thing to balance. So I know how hard they work. Take advantage of any of the calls to action that you get from the US League or our state league. Use it as an outreach opportunity. A legislator that does not pay attention to his or her or their voters is not going to stay in office for long. Speak to their staff, explain the action we're hoping for from the senator, the representative, the official, and listen intently to the response. What we're trying to do is understand what is their position? What is their objection to our position? It's about finding common ground and humanizing your opposition. That is absolutely so important. I alluded to this, but let me just say that we have, the league has what are considered to be very liberal values and policy positions. And not everyone wants to meet with us or wants to be seen with us. So you have that as a roadblock, but I assure you persistency will pay off. Okay, next slide. Okay, so back to preparing for success. We did the first two. Do a little bit of research in advance. Never assume a position based on party affiliation. You could really be fooled. Blake Summerlin, I don't know how many of you know him. He's in our state office. Blake is just a treasure trove of information about many of our legislators. I don't know how many of you know that before coming to us, Blake worked in Senator Linda Stewart's office. And in addition, take advantage of your legislators and your official staff. They're absolutely excellent. Make them your best friend if you're really trying to get in touch with somebody and get an audience and you want to advocate. Make sure that you know their phone number, their text. There's a few of them that I even have their cell phone that I'm able to get a hold of, and they can get a hold of me. This is just so important. And there's some where you're going to get pushback, but just remind them and be clear that the league is nonpartisan. We're issue-based. We want to better understand the officials' positions prior to meeting with them, just so that we can find some common ground. Travel in pairs. I think that's really important when you're advocating directly, particularly. You can keep each other on message and focused, and one can take notes while the other is speaking. And remember always to speak with one voice. You're speaking for the league's nonpartisan positions on issues. You are not speaking on your version of the issues. This is why I orchestrate. This is why I script everything. Be a good idea to have some questions prepared that will help you better understand their positions, because you may say something and they may say, oh no, that's not what I believe at all. And then you can ask a follow-up question. Well, help us understand how you arrived at your position. Maybe there's somewhere in there where we can somehow strike a balance, or again, find common ground. Don't forget your photo op. And I do have my league email on the screen. Just in case I've said a lot, so just in case you want to follow up and it's like, oh my God, I forgot what she said. I can help you get started, and I can help you if you get stuck somewhere in the middle. Next slide. I also have a written Q&A that you may find is a good resource. I update it annually. It's geared for Lobby Corps members in Tallahassee during the 60-day legislative session, but you may find there may be a pearl of wisdom in there that you could use to aid you with your advocacy. And I know later in the presentation, there's some additional resources in there. Lobby Corps. Think of Lobby Corps as boots on the ground. We're in Tallahassee. Generally, we are able to be the league's eyes and ears, along with our with Jeff Sharkey and Capital Alliance Group, our paid lobbyists. We do what we can to advocate on behalf of the league, because we are right there in the capital city. So, all right, so that's my 15 or 20 minutes worth, and I'll turn it back to you, Teresa.
I'm going to drop that guide into the chat in just a second, share it with everybody. So one of the most difficult things about lobbying, I find, is keeping up on what's happening. So we're going to go over some of the basic ways to know what's happening. So watch for emails from both Hillsborough County League and from the state league. From our local league, you'll see updates on what's happening in legislation, calls to action for things that we're following. From the Florida League, at the state level, we get automatically, if you're a member of the league, you get capital updates once a week during session. We're waiting anxiously for the first one of this session, and it came just a couple of hours ago. So they're coming weekly this session, as they always have. So you pay attention to those. It'll keep you up to date on the bills that are moving through committee. Also, we have 2 Facebook groups at the local level. We have our League of Women Voters of Hillsborough County, our basic Facebook group, where we constantly post updates of things that are happening. And then we also have a League of Women Voters Hillsborough County LWVHC advocacy group, where we particularly post calls to action, things that are moving legislatively. And then this isn't relevant to legislative session, but we just like to mention anytime we're speaking about the vote411.org that we have through the league. There's a lot of information there during elections, just for everybody to keep in the back of your head, not to forget about that resource, not just for candidates filling out information on themselves, but also for constitutional amendments that might be on the ballot. So those are all good places to find information. And then each of our action group chairs provided information for tonight, and many of them are available to speak. So I will let them speak briefly and introduce themselves if they're here. So Lori, I see, I don't know if Angela is here as well, but maybe you can just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about healthcare. You're muted.
Angela, are you here? If you want to go first. Okay, I don't hear her.
Yeah.
All right, my name is Lori Winkles. I co-chair the Healthcare Action Group along with Angela Birdsong. And we've listed some of them. There was a vast amount. And in fact, I sent a slide to Deb and Teresa saying there's like 100 of them. And there's so many important healthcare issues right now. And she said, can you limit it to 10? And it was almost impossible. One of the most important things, we have been working on is a Medicaid expansion. We've been working on that for a long time. But right now, coming up is the abortion. And that is just going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And there, it's just important that we reach people to say no. They're trying to take away women's own decision. And it's a personal decision, and it shouldn't be made by other people. It should be made by a woman with her physician. And that is what we have been advocating for. It was kind of new for the league because we had not been supporting of abortion, but now we are supporting all reproductive rights for women. And that includes that. Then we can go on to there's kids care and there's mental health issues and there's diversity and equity. And you have all these, House and Senate bills. And you just have to watch them. You get all the information from the league is updating you, but you can go on and watch this and get, updates on this to see where they are, when they're being voted on, and what the status is, and what you're passionate about.
And one of the best ways to keep up on what's happening with our action groups and committees is to join them for a meeting. So if you're interested in what's happening with healthcare, they meet on the first Mondays at 6. And they can be reached at healthcare@hclwv.org to get on their list to be invited to get their Zoom link for their meeting.
And we would love to have you.
Next up, I don't believe Emily was able to join us tonight. Jump in if you're here. But our transportation action group chair is Emily Hinsdale, and she provided a few transportation bills to watch here. We will be providing a link to this presentation to everybody so you can look through the bills that are provided. So she initially gave me the top 2 and then contacted me this afternoon with 2 more. So this is the time in session where there's a lot of bills moving rapidly, and so the list will grow as time goes on. Lori started with 100, but the rest of us will continue to have more coming through as we go. So the transportation group does not have a set meeting date. If you're interested in working with Emily on transportation issues, she's very active at a local level, a state level, and a national level with transportation, and she can be reached at transportation@hclwv.org. And then next up, I don't believe Keisa is here. Also, speak up if you are. But Keisa Shapiro is a chair of our gun safety action group. She gave me three initially, and then gave me the last one, which she said does not currently have a Senate companion, but is something that they're very concerned about and wanted to make sure that we watched. So House Bill 103 removes the requirement of having a license to carry a concealed firearm. So there's quite a few other information in that summary, revises criminal penalties, provides for issuance of a concealed carry license for reciprocity, meaning that non-residents can come in with weapons with licenses from other states. So there is a lot in that bill to watch. As of right now, it doesn't have a Senate companion, but she wanted to make sure that we paid attention to that. Anybody that's, I saw our past gun safety chair on here. I don't want to call anybody out, but if there's anybody here that wanted to mention any of the other gun safety bills, please speak up. Okay. And next up, we have our voter protection subcommittee. I have 2 pages here. I know Lynn is on here. I don't know if Kathy is on here as well. Lynn, would you like to say a few words? This is just part of your list.
Yeah, we had a hard time narrowing our list down as well. We got a long list from Tallahassee of bills that they're watching that are related to voter rights. So we tried to merge the ones that seem to be companion bills or at least related bills. There are actually some good bills on our list. There's one that would require the supervisors of elections to include a stamped envelope with a mail-in ballot. We're used to that in Hillsborough County, but that's not the case around the state. So assuming that the supervisors have the budget, they would send stamped envelopes for mail-in ballots to be returned. There are a couple of bills that look to overturn some of the requirements that were in the in Senate Bill 90 that did pass last year that put restrictions on voting, put restrictions on third-party voter registrants. So there are a couple of bills that look to overturn some of those. There's also a bill that would require schools to teach students about voter registration and provide opportunities for them to register to vote online. So there are some bills that we will be supporting and some that we will not be supporting. I just would suggest that members, keep abreast of information that will be going out from the league about when bills are going to be voted on and who to contact, and look for talking points, when you contact your legislator to tell them you are opposed or that you support a specific bill. We meet monthly. We meet generally on the second Wednesday of each month. But in February, we will be meeting on a Tuesday on March the 8th. And Kathy and I are co-chairs. We are a subcommittee under voter services. So all of our priority is around voting rights and protecting voting rights and supporting voter registration.
Perfect. Thanks, Lynn. They have a very active committee, so if you're interested in being involved with that, please attend their meetings. And also, it is a priority, voting rights are our biggest priority. But at the state level, you will see updates on those bills in the Capitol report and any newsletters that come out of the state as well. And then next up, I have Carol on here from Natural Resources.
Good evening. This is Carol Keisa, and our action group meets the third Thursday of each month. So that will be this Thursday. And top of the agenda was to go through and prioritize a lot of these. I would like to commend the State League, who has provided a very extensive list of environmentally related bills, natural resources and energy, but also a subcategory of them that pertain to preemption. Now, preemption has been a concern in a number of environmental areas, but you can understand that it also, some of those could impact some other areas. I think it's something that I know Hillsborough is concerned about, and I'm sure the State League is as well. So there was just a recent update, and I only read it very quickly. The State League has prioritized the net metering, and you saw the call to action from Cecile about a week or so ago, and now it's been through committees. It's been amended, and actually in a quick reading looked worse. So I think we'll be continuing to hear from the State League about that. And following that, when we met with the State League and the other leagues to hear about the priorities, I understood that the State League, tries to get ahead of harmful legislation. So the priorities often is things that we're in opposition to. And there actually are a couple of bills that we could support. So I didn't want to eliminate and just have a sort of a negative approach. The governor as well occasionally extends himself in a positive way in terms of the environment. So we will be discussing and finalizing this extensive list this week. And I did want to just kind of give a shout out though on the single-use plastics bill, because we do have at the county level a special event actually for the Tampa Bay area focusing on plastics. So that was something specifically for the county level, but otherwise following the expertise and the list from the league, State League. That's it.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks, Carol. Did you say you meet on the third Thursday at what time?
10 o'clock in the morning by Zoom.
10 a.m. We'll update the presentation to show that before we pass it out. And I'll briefly go over the education information. So I'm the contact person for the Education Action Group within the league. We're now meeting on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Usually we meet once a month, but during session we're meeting every other week. Since we met today, our next meeting February 1st for anybody that wants to join us. We're following also a long list of bills, but I'll just start with the ones that are starting to move through committee. The one that's been getting the most attention is Senate Bill 1048, House Bill 1193, which is the testing bill, which is going to get rid of FSA and replace it with fast testing. There's also a bill about video cameras in public school classrooms, one about civic literacy, one that could fall under education or under voter protection, is the amendment to the proposed amendment to the state constitution to require school boards to be partisan elections. And then there's that last one, Senate Bill 242, is the one that a lot of people refer to as critical race theory. But it's will require public schools that are K through 20, grades K through 20, puts limits on instruction that falls under their definition of divisive concepts. So those are some of the education bills that we're following, and we do meet every other week to discuss action steps that we can take, and you'll also get action alerts from local and state on things that are coming through on education. And then next up, we have Noreen Dollard with redistricting.
1 minute. Oh, there we go. Got it. Hi, I'm Noreen Dollard, and I am the action chair for redistricting. And a lot of the work that we've done has been through email, but we fall under voter services and try to get with voter protection is a usual. I get information, Helen and Kathy, and attend when I can. So there's really there's congressional redistricting and there's state legislative redistricting, and without belaboring it, although email me and I'm happy to geek out with you with respect to who does what in joint resolutions for the maps. And so if you're interested in learning more, email me there or catch me or at least get the information at Voter Protection. And I'm happy to get you involved. And right now, obviously, we're focusing at the state level. And we've done a lot of work at the local level. So we're shifting our attention to Tallahassee now.
All right. Carol mentioned before, she also sent me some bills on, we don't have an action group that's specifically related to preemption of local control. She gathered a few bills that will remove local control and move things to the state level. A couple more came, an education meeting that I was at today, one related to instead of media specialists at our schools deciding what books we have, it would remove that decision to the either Board of Education or the Florida Department of Education. They would just start deciding what books could be allowed in our public school libraries. So there's quite a few preemption bills that we'll be following through the league as well. And then we just wanted to make sure that we talked about how to follow a bill. So briefly, if you go to either floridasenate.gov or myfloridahouse.gov, they both have tracking systems where you create, you put in your email and create a password, and then you can click on the bills that you want to follow, and then you'll receive an email whenever there's an update to those. So that was particularly helpful to me in March of 2020 when the pandemic hit and our eyes were off of what was happening in Tallahassee. I would still get an email every time the bills that I was following had something happen with them. So both the Senate and the House have a way to search for a bill and read the bill language and see when it's going to be heard in its next committee or on the floor. They both have a tracking system that you can sign up for, and they have a calendar schedule so that you can see what is on their agenda for that day. And that is all we have for you tonight. We have QR codes on here if you're interested in becoming a member of the league, and student members are free to join for students. And we just wanted to ask if anybody had any questions for Trish or myself.
I have a question. This is Chris Kahn. I should put my camera on, sorry. I will not be able to attend lobby days next week. What is your feedback, Trish, on doing trying to schedule virtual appointments with our legislators on the 26th? Should we try, not try? Any suggestions?
I'd go ahead and try. Just
Okay.
keep in mind that this is a crazy time of the year. It'll be difficult to catch.
Uh-oh.
I wasn't sure if it was my
back now.
computer or hers.
Yeah.
It may have been mine. I've been having problems. Spectrum updated the service, but apparently it's not working well since they updated.
Do we have Trish back?
Trish, are you there?
Am I here?
Now, yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, good. All right, so I don't know when I cut out. What did you hear? Am I here? Am I
You said
there?
to go ahead. You said to go ahead and try. See if we could. It's a busy time, but go ahead and try to see if we can get an appointment.
Okay, all right, good.
I have a
Are there any-
question. Oh, Carol does too. I couldn't find my hand.
Okay, Carol's hand is raised. Go ahead, Carol.
Deb, I'll give you a hint. It's attached to your body.
Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, just is there somewhere that someone would suggest I go for a primer on sort of the budget and appropriation process in Florida?
I'm sure there must be something out there. I have to say that the budget process has been in Florida has been a mystery to me. And I'm trying to remember where I think I got it from a member of my delegation, Representative Allison Tant. I think I got some information from from her legislative assistant when I was trying to figure out what they were doing last year. I'm sure there has to be some information out there. I wish I could be more specific as to where to go to get it.
In my day job, I work for the Florida Policy Institute, and we have a voter's guide to the budget, which I will go find and drop in the chat.
Yay, thank you.
Okay, I'll ask my question now if I can. So Trish, you mentioned that it was so important for us to identify ourselves as a constituent should we decide to email or call or whatever our legislators. So we get action, calls to action from the state where they're encouraging us to contact every single committee member
Right.
about something. So we got one today, I think, about the reproductive rights thing. So is that effective too? I mean, is that okay to do that? And
Oh,
even though-
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely.
So they
so
care.
They do, because I didn't believe this at first. One of our previous lobbyists had said, you know, the legislator staff keeps a tally of everything they receive, whether it's pro or con. I was like, really? Oh, I can't believe they do that. Well, in fact, they actually do. Because they need to have that intel, whether you're their constituent or not. Now, the reason I would say tell them you're constituent is because you're more likely to get FaceTime with that particular person. But definitely, some of the most important work that our local leagues can do, and I say this to every local league that I speak to, is respond to those calls to action. You know, we've got 5,500, I think, members, league members in the state of Florida. Imagine if we could talk all 5,500 into responding to those action alerts. I mean, just think how powerful our voice would be, whether everybody's a constituent or not. I mean, it's just so important to do that.
Thank you.
You know when everybody is calling because they start responding to your position before you can even finish talking. They say, "Are you calling from the league, or are you calling from Hill?" Sometimes it's a Hillsborough County issue. Are you calling from Hillsborough County? We've already taken action, or we've already taken steps, or this is our position. So it's nice when you know everybody's calling because they start reacting to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to the budget question either. I follow the education budget very closely, but the overall budget, I would agree, is a little overwhelming.
Well,
We'll have to look for it.
I'm glad to have knowledge. I think is it Norin Dollard? I'll be anxious to see that information that you mentioned, because it's something I'll keep in my little binder.
Sure. Yeah. And anything else. I mean, we do budget, and fiscal policy is our focus. So
That's perfect. Any other questions?
Teresa, this is Pat Hall.
Hi, Pat.
I saw on the news today that DeSantis has come up with his own map for congressional districts, and that's never happened before in Florida or any other state, I don't think.
Noreen is nodding.
that's correct. Yes, he did. And there's questions. There's definitely questions about it. Can he even propose a map that he has veto power over? One question. The other thing is, and this is this is what we should do for all of the maps right now, is that we need to insist that they do a functional assessment of all of the districts, and not just the districts that were identified in the 2015 lawsuits as being out of compliance with fair district. And so that is still the message that we're putting forward, to let legislators know that the maps that are being proposed, we don't know for sure if they really are in compliance with fair districting principles, because they haven't done the analysis for every district across the state. But right now he has reduced his maps, if I'm correct, reduced the African-American voting districts from 4 to 2, and there's some funky stuff in South Florida where they're diluting the Hispanic vote, and they are in some ways, and they're combining subsets of the Hispanic voting population that would not necessarily vote the same way, which is the intent. Cecile Schoon put out, there's a press release that went out this morning that talks about it a little more in a little more depth, and I will now go find that and drop it in the chat. Pat, are you on the phone? Should I email it to you?
Yes.
I'll
Yes.
just email it. I'll put it in the chat, but I'll email you too.
If you,
I'm so
yeah,
I'm so
if you
glad you're on
also,
top of this, Noreen.
yeah, if you put it in the chat when we, we'll be putting the presentation on our YouTube channel, and anything that we feel needs to also be put in the comments below on the YouTube
Got it.
channel, we'll add it there as well.
Okay, here it is.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions tonight? All right, well, that concludes our meeting.
All
It was a
right,
wonderful
well,
presentation. Thank you both so much.
it's been wonderful. Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Teresa. And I want to thank you all for attending who came tonight. And I also want to issue a kind of call to action. So take this information and make it work for us, do it. Just go home and start doing it. It's not that hard. It doesn't take that much time, but not just that. Now that you all know how to go about this, tell your friends and your family about it too. And other
idea.
league members. Let's encourage everybody to get involved and to learn and to find out how to do this.
And
Also-
Trish said to go in twos. So now you know who all our action group chairs are, and they're always willing to talk to a legislator with you if you want someone to do it with you.
There you go. Great idea. Great idea. And if you're not a member of the league and this sounds really interesting, exciting to you, please look at those QR codes, get your camera out, and go to our website and consider joining us in our fight to empower voters and defend democracy. And I have nothing else to say. Does anyone else have anything to add to the good of the order here? If not, good night, everyone.